Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jan Leary, and I wanted to welcome you to the Truth Zone. Today we have a really exciting guest. I should say actually a couple of guests, because we are doing something very, very different this time. Victory Chapel for years has been doing a parade in every August. It has been so exciting. We are actually going to meet tonight the team that is building the Victory Chapel float. So tune in with us in just a couple of minutes and we'll be interviewing Robert Lyon. Well, so here we are at Victory Chapel, and we're in their garage, and this is actually where all the genius happens behind the floats. So the first person I'd like you to meet is Robert Lyon, and he's sitting next to Karen Mack. Welcome. I'm so glad you let us come in and interview you on this. And Karen, I wonder if you can tell us, how many years has Victory Chapel been actually doing this float?
Victory Chapel has actually been doing this for about 27 years, I think. And it's really progressed from the very first time we did it.
The first one was a dove made out of tissue paper flowers, remember?
Yes, that was quite the production. We've really changed the way we've done it, too. I can't wait to talk about that.
So, Robert, why don't you tell us, actually, why do they do a parade every year? What's the purpose of the Victory Chapel parade?
It's a big impact in the community, for people to kind of a large thing that people can pay attention to, and hopefully it gets them thinking, about eternity and about the condition of their own soul.
Okay, so Karen, I wanted to ask you, how many hours go into a float like this?
It really does vary. When I said that we've changed the way we've done things, the initial first couple of floats, we had the whole church involved in making little tiny carnations out of Kleenex, which is what we did with, I remember doing that in Girl Scouts, and it was really fun. I mean, people would take bags of this stuff home and, work with other people that were in the church. It was just a blast, and then everybody would bring in giant garbage bags full of different colored tissues, and we'd make whatever Robert and I would put the thing on chicken wire, and I actually think the first thing we did was a thing of Cape Cod. That was
the dove was the very first one.
Cape Cod was the second one. But anyway,
and then the scroll was the third.
It was enormously laborsome doing that, so you can't even estimate the number. You can't even estimate the number of hours it took, but it was just such fun. Nobody really counted the hours, and then we progressed to other things. We've had such good builders. It really is not just Robert and I that do this.
Welders.
We have a couple of other people that were key every single year. Master builder. We had a master builder involved and an unbelievable welder. And so the four of us pounded it out. So in terms of the actual physical time, probably
hours and hours and hours.
Right. It was hours. In the beginning, I had a camper, and I used to bring I had 3 little kids, and I would bring them to the warehouse or whichever. We've been in 3 different buildings since then, and I would bring them with me, and they'd help whatever what we were doing. So sometimes it was a wire base, chicken wire base with a metal frame. So the welder did hours of welding, and then they'd present it to us, and Robert and I would wrap the
Paper
chicken
mache.
wire and cut huge things. I mean, I'm hoping that you're able to show some of the pictures of
Mount
some of the things we
Rushmore.
did. We had a giant hand pointing up and whatever, just really fun
The
things.
hand that was the gift of God with Jesus in the middle.
Right, lots of things, and probably the community remembers many of them,
Whales.
anybody that's been around long. So, how many hours? I think because of the necessity of doing it and how much fun it was, we really stopped counting. But I would say it averaged between 2 full weeks, which this one we're hoping is only going to take 2 weeks, but it may be closer to 3 weeks because the planning takes a lot of time. And the layouts take a lot of time, and gathering of materials takes a long time, and there's costumes involved. So it really is like a grand theater production.
Sometimes
And-
it's as much as 6 weeks.
Oh, more than that sometimes. I think because of gathering of materials, sometimes it can be 3 months.
Whoa.
There's been some times when it's been 3 months, I really think. But the
Big
actual
plans for
physical,
a one-day event.
it's fun.
Yeah.
It's very fun, and it does have impact, and people do remember it. And like with all things that you do for God, if it feels like it's too much at times, it's so outweighed by the tremendous joy of God that comes on you when you're doing something for Him. It's just tremendous. It's very similar to what happens in a theater production when everybody's working long hours and memorizing lines, but there's something very different about when God enters into a project like this, and I've never regretted any of those hours. It's just been so much fun.
That's amazing that, people actually look forward to this event. And not only that, they get a real joy out of it. And that joy is something really only God can give you. And a lot of people look, you could be looking at this saying, wow, I just couldn't do that kind of labor. But that's really where God takes over. He gives you the desire, and the joy comes in the going. So that's really great, Karen. Now, this is obviously a lot of work for one day. So what else Robert, tell us, what else happens this day or this week? Is there anything else that comes along with the float?
The parade itself, we have, the float, bands, music that day. It's followed up in the evening with a music scene at our church where a lot of visiting bands also play. And then that Sunday in the next week, we usually have a revival with some out-of-town preacher. This year, it's going to be Richard Cox, and he's here Sunday in the morning, Sunday night, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with services at 7. And it's usually a really good time.
That's absolutely amazing. So now we're going to get into some pretty interesting things that they're going to be putting on these humongous boards behind us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the documents you're going to be putting on these boards?
This year's float has a theme of the Charters of Freedom.
It's the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution, and just how they were formed and used for the foundations of our government. I love this quote by John Adams. He said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate for the government of any other." That a people that will believe and worship God, these documents will work for. And, a nation that forgets God, these documents aren't going to hold up anymore. And that's why there's this pressure to, change them or, modify them to fit to our modern society that I personally don't think is working really that well. So we're just trying to remind people, this is what we were, the blessings that this country has, this is where they came from. And if we really want to change it to be something else, we're not going to be blessed anymore. And, we're still such a great nation, but we're quickly turning into, what a lot of other countries are, losing our freedoms and losing our liberty. And, all of that really comes from God. And so that's what this float is basically about.
Now, Karen, over the years, I've noticed too that, because I've obviously been in a lot of these parades, you've been in charge of doing a lot of banners. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
The banners have been tremendous as sort of a lead into the parade. It's a huge banner, and we have measurements for how high we can possibly make our floats, and sometimes we come really close to the very max limit that we can to get under the wires and get under other things. But we also think about the size of the banners to stretch all the way across the street is sort of the main statement that's going to happen. And so I've always hand-painted my banners, and it's in the day of computer-driven stuff. We do lots. Our documents this year are going to be computer-driven, but I did do another banner this year. And it's always a key thing, try to tie in.
This one says, "Our strength is in him who ruleth over all, and our resources, the gift of heaven for human welfare." And that was actually said by George Washington.
George said both of those at 2 different times. So what a cool thing. And I've always felt that there's something extra good about a hand-painted article. It's bright, it's not this, and they last a long time. We sometimes use the banners more than once because we've had boot camps and other things that we've had, and we've used them for those. So the banners have been a key part to the parade, sort of as an introduction to the marching group. We also had marching bands. We had a marching band, and we did a lot of singing.
Bearers.
Right.
Yep, we had international flags that we've marched with frequently because of all the churches that we've sent out. So
You've
there's
had
just so many
acting
pieces.
groups.
We have had
also.
acting groups.
Yeah, acting out the
Yeah.
different parts.
One year, the theme was a nation adrift, and we had a large ship. But this was an interesting, different thing for us that year. We took a car and we built a small boat with giant waves crashing up against it on a car. So it drove down the street all by itself. And those were the people adrift, hanging out of the boat, looking for direction. That was a unique one.
That even actually could tie into this float as well, because people actually do go adrift if they don't have a firm foundation in God. Wow, this is really incredible. So next, I think they're going to show us how they're actually going to put the Constitution on this humongous board.
Actual Constitution.
Okay, folks, I just wanted to thank you for joining the Truth Zone, and Karen and Robert, good job raising the Constitution. And we'd like you folks to join us on August 17th at 11 o'clock in the morning for our, what number year is it?
28th.
Victory Chapel Parade on Main Street in Hyannis, Mass. Take care and God bless. So folks, stay tuned for more highlights from our previous Victory Chapel parades.
God bless America!
shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. And in James 1:22 it says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves.
Jesus Christ, we need to repent, America.
Jesus paid the price for you. Jesus paid the price for you. Stand up, Jesus. Stand up, Jesus.
Patrick Henry said, "It cannot be emphasized too strongly or too often that this great nation was founded not by religionists, but by Christians, not on religions, but on the gospel of Jesus Christ. The Charters of Freedom, remember these? The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, and the Bill of Rights are housed in the rotunda for the Charters of Freedom in the National Archives building in Washington, D.C. They are the building blocks for the foundations of this great nation. Are we in danger of losing their value to us as Americans? John Adams said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other." In order for these documents to have their power, we the people must stay submitted to God. Men will ultimately be governed by God or by tyrants, according to Benjamin Franklin. And Patrick Henry concurred with him when he said, "It is when people forget God that tyrants forget their chains." God has made us a great nation, and Abraham Lincoln's words are still true today when he said, "America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed them ourselves." Please join us on August 17th for our Morality March. Carrying a balloon, a sign, or a banner is one small task, but all of us together doing our parts make for a visually great parade. From the sidewalk, it is an impressive crowd that each of you have a part in. Together, we can accomplish our goal of reminding people not to forget their liberties or where they come from. We will need Revolutionary War soldiers, World War II soldiers, and pilgrims. I thank you in advance for your contribution to the common goal of making this year's Morality March a great one.